My number three movie is The Clock from 1945, starring Judy Garland, Robert Walker, James Gleason. Quick logline. In 1945, during a 48-hour leave, a soldier accidentally meets a girl at Penn Station and spends his leave with her, eventually falling in love with the lovely New Yorker. Directed by Vincent Minnelli and Fred Zinnemann, and realized that Fred Zinnemann also directed this, says uncredited on IMDb. This was my number three movie because to me, this movie kind of locks into the earnestness and the innocence of a meet cute, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And you can sort of look at the meet cute through different lenses, and that's sort of how I explored my list. And to me, this is about that, where the world is more innocent than it is now in some ways, although I
Right.
guess this could happen even now. but
Yeah.
but but
Yeah, it
yeah, I
could.
mean, the whole sort of plot of somebody who's come back from war is totally a fish out of water, is just hanging out at the station, doesn't know really what to do. Obviously we're not getting into any of the PTSD things or whatever life this person has lived, but you can see there is sort of yearning, to live a life. And what better place to do that but New York? But
Right.
also New York is very overwhelming. And what do you do? And there's something very sweet about him and just sweet about his circumstance. And then lo and behold, he has this amazing meet cute moment with Judy Garland, because
Mm-hmm.
accidentally she ends up breaking her heel, because he's sitting on the stairs, and she sort of trips
Over
over
him. Yeah. She trips
uh,
over him. Yeah.
over him, exactly. And then of course she's on the escalator and he's holding the heel, and somehow they come together.
Mm-hmm.
And then what ensues after, yes, there's attraction, but I think a lot of it is just, I don't think they both have anything better to do. And they just sort of hang
Yeah.
out. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
she sort of has to go to work, but not really.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, I go back to the chemistry part of the two people. Like, even in today's times, let alone in the 40s, you would not spend this much time with a total stranger
Right.
who you
Right.
just met at the station. But I think they sell it.
Yeah.
There's something so sweet about him, and you see, I think this is one of my favorite Judy Garland performances, maybe one of her few that comes to my mind, sort of adult roles, if you will, where she's
Mm-hmm.
not just
Mm-hmm.
playing like a child or in a
Mm-hmm.
musical or what have you, where and you see the spectrum of emotions on her face of wanting to be there, but also being a little bit apprehensive, but
Right.
still
She's
wanting to be
unsure.
there,
Yeah.
unsure, and but still drawn to him. And so I don't know. I just find that really, really charming and beautiful. And then the movie builds on. Like when she goes back for the dinner, that's sort of on a whim, right? Like somebody tells you with whom you just had this instant connection meet, and they say, "Oh, do you want to meet up later?" And you're like,
Right.
"Sure."
Right.
And then you show up there, and then reality kicks in of like, why am I here? And should I be here? And what have you? And then, of course, hijinks ensues after that in this movie,
Right.
where somehow they end up spending the entire night together, and through this milk distribution thing, and all sorts of stuff happens in this one night. So I think it's a great kind of, movie in a day or 2 day
Right.
period as well. um Obviously, like them getting engaged, or the whole like heist to get engaged, is a little bit kind of off its time. Like, this would
Mm-hmm.
not happen today, but it makes sense when you look at it from that point of view. Like, this is wartime. War has just ended, and people are kind of looking for something fantastical and amazing and out there to latch onto, to live life king size. And I think both of these people, knowingly or unknowingly, want that. And when they find glimmers of that in each other, they just want to go with it. So,
Right.
and you go with them. And the last thing I would say is Vincent Minnelli's direction. He is the master of all this, right? To make it so sweet and effortless. And so yeah, I watched this movie. And by the way, I should ask, have you watched this movie? Had you watched it before?
No, I never heard of it before. Yeah, never heard of it.
Yeah,
I
it
really
just
enjoyed it though. It was great. I just never, this is not a movie I never heard of.
I hadn't either until the pandemic. It showed up on Criterion
Oh,
Channel and I just happened to watch it and absolutely, maybe I was also in sort of that weird isolated
yeah.
pandemic state of mind living in New York all by myself. So it kind of really pulled me in. But
Yeah.
I was glad to watch it again and see that it's still held up. What did you think of it?
Yeah, no, I think I liked the movie a lot. I think it did have that, that initial meet cute moment was, again, like I said, sort of super mundane. She accidentally trips over him, and
Yeah,
then that's how they meet. But what I liked about this movie too is that it sort of shows that's the the meet cute is like the trigger, but you have to kind of take advantage. If there's something that you feel there, you have to sort of take advantage of it. Like he then,
right.
she leaves, but then he chases after her bus, and he's like, "Hey, we should like hang out." And there's the moment when they it's sort of awkward where she kind of pushes him a little bit. She's like, "Yeah, maybe you could go to like this museum to spend your time today." It's
I
just like
love
right over,
that back and forth
and
banter.
and like the museum's right over there. He's like, "Oh, okay." And she's like, I've never been there in a long time." She's sort of being like, "Ask me out on a date," kind of thing. So she's
Uh-huh.
then at that point sending signals like, "Come on, just like ask me. I want to go with you. Just all you have to do is say it." I thought that was a
Yeah,
great little scene too. So it shows
yeah,
both of them, felt something after that meet
yeah,
cute to enough where that they're like putting a little bit of effort in to kind of push it and see sort of where it goes. Which also I
yeah,
think is really realistic too. Like, you could have meet cute moments, multiple of them a day, but if you don't either recognize that it's happening or take advantage of it, you never know what can happen. And I like that both of these
right.
folks are at least in the position where they want to kind of see where it's going. You don't really know a lot about their backgrounds to know what's
No,
kind of motivating them for that. But like the performances sell it where you're not like asking, well, this is kind of weird. Like, why is she going to a museum with a total stranger? Why is he
right.
chasing after the bus? It's like something you just sort of accept because of the two lead actors, kind of like one of the things you were mentioning earlier. So yeah, I like that, and I also thought it was interesting throughout the whole because maybe this takes place over 24 hours, 48 hours. It's not a long
48
period of
hours,
time,
yeah.
but it goes through almost like an entire cycle of a relationship. You have like the initial
Yeah,
meeting where you're kind of feeling it out, you have some attraction, then you go to like a dinner, and then it's like the reality hits of like, wait, what are we doing? Like, should we really even be
yeah,
together? And then there's a nice scene that I really liked where I think it's on their second date. They're on a hillside, sort of like overlooking New
right.
York, and he's talking
Yeah,
about like, oh wow, like what an amazing thing. Like we never should have met. Like my ship came in here, and like he's sort of talking about all these things that had to happen in each of their lives to lead them to that point, which is definitely something,
yeah,
in relationships, you sort of reach that point. It's like, wow, like this is incredible that we happened. All these things had to happen before we met to cause us to meet. Which is something, at least in relationships I've been in, you have reached that stage, you have that kind of conversation. Like, this is cool. Like all
mm-hmm.
these random things that happen. And then, the struggles of them kind of getting married and the wet feet that they have on that. So it's sort of like encapsulated an entire actual relationship in the period of 48 hours, which maybe that's unrealistic and doesn't happen. Usually
Yeah,
it's maybe a couple months or a year or
right.
something, but it's a movie. And I like how they kind of could tick
And
all
of
those
its
boxes
time
of that.
too.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe the people moved faster back in the 40s. I don't know. But
And I think the war context, like I said earlier, is very important. I think that hovers over the whole
interesting.
thing. I don't know if people would be rushing to get engaged or married after like a 2 hour, 2 day
Mm-hmm.
thing. Probably, I don't know, maybe not, but whatever it is, I bought it.
Yeah, yeah. I actually didn't really think too much about the whole war thing, other than the fact that it was sort of a plot element of like he was going to leave at some point. Like he had to go back
Yeah,
to wherever he was stationed or what have you. I was just sort of treating it as, like the destiny kind of like, is this something we should be chasing after or not? But that is interesting. I didn't really think about this from the whole war, but yeah, obviously like the movie was made during that time, and
right.
him being a soldier, I do think plays into it. If he was just like a tourist, it might not have been the
It's
same
different.
thing. It is very
Yeah.
different. But I was very charmed by it. I definitely, yeah, like you said, it's a great Judy Garland performance. I never even heard of this other actor who's in it. I don't know who he was, but he did a good job. But she
Yeah,
was
he was
great.
great as well. She was great. The last thing I wanted to mention on this one is that actually two things. What you just said made me think of it that I've actually never looked at meet cutes with that kind of real life lens. But the fact is, all relationships are actually meet cutes. How people meet
Right.
and
Right.
how they end up being with each other and whatever happens in their lives. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you really think about it, because you're right, like I've had this conversation with my boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we met like this and this happened, and
Mm-hmm.
this is what you were wearing, this is what
Right.
you brought, and this is what I brought, and this is you have such clear memories of
Mm-hmm.
that initial meeting. And that couldn't have happened. Maybe I had fallen sick that day, or
Correct.
maybe,
Right.
the person just ghosted me. All sorts of things could have happened, right?
Right.
So, in a way, in our world today, where most people sort of end up meeting online, and
Mm-hmm.
perhaps some of the romance and magic of like a true happenstance meet cute is gone. But even so, there's still meet cutes, I think.
Yeah, like I think I would categorize a meet cute as a moment where the two people aren't looking for it and it happens to them sort of
True.
out of their control is how I would define, like, because if you go on a date with someone and that's
True.
how you meet them, I consider that a first meeting, not necessarily meet cute, but maybe we're splitting hairs on that. But I feel like a meet cute is something where neither person is looking for anything and it just magically sort of happens to both of them. But that's where I really associate magic a lot with the whole concept of a meet cute and all those sort of things, which we'll get into a bit later, I think, in one of my picks.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of magic. And then I guess one final thing on this one is that
Mhm.
I always imagined, like, not that I've made a list of like, oh, wouldn't it be great if this happened to me? But one of the meet cute things that I would fantasize about a little bit is that, oh, wouldn't it be great if I were in a new city just visiting and just
Yeah.
met somebody,
Mm-hmm.
like somebody like showed me around, and then, magic ensued after. So
Right.
in my single days, this was one thing that I probably have thought about.
Oh, you keep going on new cities and just stand at street corners trying to trip people and see, like, if you trip the right person, then maybe there's something
Gosh,
happens.
a total creeper.
Hey, I don't know. Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.